Since we have existed as a species, migration has been the common denominator. You know, when things aren't going so well in your place of origin, sometimes it's better to leave. Words of an immigrant. Usually, people migrate to a rich place, or at least a stable one, somewhere nearby, with a similar culture that you can easily adapt to. Usual, but that's not always the rule, and just a quick look at our region is enough to confirm this. What are the most random minorities living in our countries? Neither close nor rich. Are you interested? Okay, watch until the end. Just like in some countries, polarization is Peronists versus libertarians. In my country, Peru, the biggest cliché is Fujimorists versus anti-Fujimorists. How random is it that our most significant contemporary president is a Japanese Peruvian whom we used to call the Chinese guy? Subscribe. But we won't talk about politics here, since it's too early to get hate from my fellow countrymen. I'm telling you this to introduce an unexpected phenomenon. The fact that a country so far away, not rich at all, and with little cultural connection, is the third country with the most Japanese people living abroad. According to the latest figures, about 224,000 Peruvians have Japanese ancestry and are known as Nikki, who have also created an amazing culinary fusion. It all began in 1899. Japan was in the process of modernization after the Meiji Restoration, and Peru was in national reconstruction after the disaster of the War of the Pacific. Emperor Meiji viewed the surplus rural population as an issue, and President Pierola needed cheap labor for coastal agriculture. The emperor saw the excess of Pierola needed cheap labor. That's how, through immigration companies like Morioka, a first group of Japanese was sent in April of this year under the following conditions: 12-hour workdays, precarious housing, reduced wages, and physical abuse. Carlitos doesn't like this. However, the Japanese not only put up with all of this, but even more of them were convinced to emigrate. Those who had already arrived didn't return to Japan, but stayed in Peru and, with the little they earned, started small businesses. Over time, a very influential Peruvian Nikki community was established, which has made a significant impact in politics, gastronomy, and culture. And is this
for Peru?
Speaking of Peru, we had a Uruguayan coach who didn't get us to qualify, but we remember him for his peculiar last name, Sergio Markarian, which rhymes with Pashinyan or Kardashian. Why? Because he's of Armenian origin. Today in Uruguay, there are about 20,000 Armenians, 0.6% of the population, and in Argentina, about 100,000. Unlike Argentina, only Europeans and Westerners immigrated here, arriving by ship.
Octavio Paz once wrote that Mexicans came from the Indians, Brazilians came from the jungle, but we Argentinians came from the ships.
To be honest, besides the tremendous distance, we did find significant differences between Armenian culture, which is traditionalist and orthodox, and the culture of the Rio de la Plata, which is one of the most progressive in our region.
Feminism is social justice. It came to save us and to defeat the patriarchy.
So why did so many Armenians choose Uruguay and Argentina? How do you imagine it? Why? It all began in 1915 during the Armenian genocide carried out by the Young Turks, who wanted to homogenize the Ottoman Empire. Faced with such barbarity, hundreds of thousands of Armenians chose to flee, most of them to European countries. However, others were afraid that the Turks would win the war, so they didn't feel safe even in Europe itself. For that reason, they chose to go even farther away, to a peaceful continent like America. Although most went to the United States, Others chose another area, which at that time was prosperous and neutral, like Argentina and Uruguay. The Armenians were admitted as free immigrants, and the local perception was positive. They were seen as hardworking people eager to integrate. Once settled, the Armenians of the Rio de la Plata created community networks that made it easier for more Armenians to arrive. In 1965, Uruguay became the first country to recognize the Armenian genocide, and the Montevideo Council recognized the independence of the now defunct ARSAC. According to this comment, at the Armenian Cultural Center in Buenos Aires, the Wi-Fi password is Turkey, genocidal state. Can someone from Buenos Aires confirm this in the comments? If we're talking about what the fuck numbers, in this video, this one takes the prize. Lebanon has about 5 million Lebanese people. Just like Brazil, which by the way also had a Lebanese president, Michel Temer. He's not as well remembered as the Chinese-Japanese one, but still, Lebanese influence in Brazil. Do they really like caipirinhas that much? It turns out that the first migrations happened at the end of the 19th century. The reason? An agricultural crisis in what was then the Mutasarrifat of Mount Lebanon, along with sectarian tensions between Christians, Maronites, and Druze, who also weren't exactly the favorites of the Muslim Turks. Brazil had abolished slavery in 1888 and needed free labor to replace it. In agriculture, what are you saying? I know a lot about agriculture. Let's look at Brazil. Let's do it for ourselves. That's how hundreds of thousands of Lebanese people who already had rural knowledge migrated en masse. Especially because there were almost direct steamship routes from Beirut, Marseille, Rio de Janeiro, and Santos. And since Brazil is huge, there was plenty of land to farm. The first Lebanese migrants sent remittances, encouraging family members and neighbors to follow them. And that's how today they make up an important minority in the Portuguese-speaking country, despite sharing little cultural affinity. If you ask me why I don't usually say Latin America, not even in this video, it's because I honestly find very little cultural similarity with the only French-speaking country in the region. Haitians don't even fully speak another Romance language, but rather a Creole, a mixed language, just like their religion, a syncretism of Catholicism with African traditions like voodoo. It's true that it's the poorest and most unfortunate country in the Americas, so it's understandable many have chosen to flee. The most common thing is for them to go to the neighboring country, the Dominican Republic, or to venture to emigrate to the United States, even if it's by raft. What doesn't make much sense is that today there are almost 200,000 Haitians in Chile, a country that can only be reached by plane, and it's hard to believe that the average Haitian could afford a ticket. This is the most recent migration phenomenon on this list since it only took off in 2014 during the second government of Michelle Bachelet. Although visas for Haitians increased during this period, there is no solid evidence of a bilateral agreement between Chile and Haiti. What is true is that there are links to documented cases of human trafficking, where Haitians were lured with fake contracts and charged for the trip. Chile is one of the richest and most stable countries in the region, so despite the language and cultural barriers, it seemed like a tempting offer. At first, Bachelet referred to the humanitarian approach and the demand for labor as reasons to accept Haitian immigration. Did she want to act like she was multicultural Hispanic? However, due to the massive increase, the Chilean government began requiring a consular visa starting in 2018. Nowadays, Haitian immigration is one of the main topics of debate among Chileans. And maybe I'll even get some hate in this section. What's your stance on this? The Druze are an Arab ethno-religious group who follow a faith that can be defined as a syncretism with Islam. esoteric beliefs and philosophical elements from ancient Greece. They were in the spotlight a few months ago due to clashes with the Syrian government and for being protected by Israel. Yes, they lack their own state and are spread across Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Venezuela. What are they doing in Supervivo's country? To be honest, this phenomenon is related to the previously mentioned Lebanese immigration to South America at the end of the 19th century, which came along with Syrian immigration, when they were not yet independent countries. However, the Druze had two more waves, the second one after World War II. In the context of the independence of Lebanon and Syria, where their faith was incompatible with the dominant Islam, especially in the latter country, a third wave occurred between 1974 and 1990 during the Lebanese Civil War, and it had a strong religious component, so many Druze chose to flee. These two subsequent waves happened after the first wave paved the way for relatives, especially within such a closed and traditionalist community as the Druze. During the second half of the 20th century, Venezuela was one of the most attractive destinations in Iberoamerica. You know, during the oil boom, Caracas was known as the Miami of South America, and Venezuela's per capita gross domestic product was similar to Norway's in the 1960s. During the governments of the post-58 democracy, immigration policies in Venezuela were relatively friendly. Oh, the Druze definitely took advantage of it. Today, there are Druze institutions in the country, such as the Druze Society of Venezuela, which actively participates as part of the Druze diaspora.
We all know what our beautiful Sweden is going through, and we want to show our Druze brothers that it's not like that.
Despite the cultural differences, they have integrated well. If not, ask our Druze friend with the big mustache, Tarek El Aizami, who was vice president of the country. Even in Chavismo, they integrated. Anyway, these have been the 5 most random minorities in our countries. If this video reaches 100,000 views, I'll make a second part because I didn't cover everything. If you're interested in seeing it, then share this video. Let's reach that number. In the meantime, let me know in the comments, which of these minorities surprised you the most? Are there any others you think should be on this list? Don't forget to leave your comment and subscribe to the channel. Also, I'm leaving my social media links in the description. And if you want to watch the new videos at the premiere and have more interaction with me, your donations on Patreon, Una Manito Net, or channel memberships are welcome. See you next time.